Hey everybody, welcome into the Big Factor here on the Big Play Sports Network. I'm Ryan Tyler, joined by Nick Padone and Jack O'Rourke. As you can tell, we're a little geared out today. We're in the green. As we're taping this, it is St. Patrick's Day. I know you might not watch it on St. Patrick's Day. It should be a week-long holiday anyway, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
I think, as an Irish man myself. Jack, of course, you're an Irish man. I like the Blackhawks jersey, by the way. Looks very cool. Nick, not so much green on you, but you got green garage beer behind you.
Pants on. Got the lovely green garage beer limes behind me. So we're festive over here, as festive as we can.
Well, a lot to talk about today. Myles Garrett presser reaction. We'll get to that. NFL free agent updates. Myles Garrett was the richest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Held that title less than a week, or right around a week. That now belongs to Jamar Chase, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. American League West preview. I realized I didn't fix that. I need to re-upload that, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Backyard Sports is back, guys. We'll talk about that. I'm a huge fan of the game. I played it so much as a kid. Yeah. But we got to start talking right away about Myles Garrett. His press conference Friday, March 14th. First time talking to the public, the media, after becoming the richest non-paid quarterback in NFL history, paying him $40 million a year. He says he doesn't regret his decision making the trade request public, but he did admit it was difficult to think about leaving Northeast Ohio. Well, the money ensures that he's going to stay a Brown up until about 2030. When he eventually reaches not his peak, but he'll be a Cleveland Brown for the foreseeable future, guys. What were your big takeaways from that presser? It's good to see him remaining in brown and orange. A little bit of animosity, I suppose, but that's normal for Myles Garrett. Your guys' takeaways?
Yeah, it was. Usually when you have these, it's a celebration press conference, really. And I think the Browns tried to make it that with the toy dinosaurs and the cupcakes, but we weren't able to really have the big celebration the same way that the Raiders celebrated Max Crosby just about a week ago during his extension press conference because of the trade request. The Cleveland media had to ask the hard-hitting questions about what changed, what went wrong, and the Browns' plans moving forward. So it really felt more like an interrogation than it did a celebration. I think now that it's over, thank goodness, the Browns could finally put this in the rearview mirror. Myles was asked the tough questions. He answered the tough questions, kind of contradicted himself a couple times. He said that it wasn't about the money, but within the same answer, thanked his agent, Nicole Lynn, for being able to pull off this big contract. So who knows really what happened? Who knows if Myles is really happy with this extension, if he really believes in the plan, if he really believes that the Browns could win a Super Bowl in these next 5 years of this contract. But it's all over now, and we could finally stop talking about it.
It's just one of those weird things, man. It's like you're all excited to go to your buddy's bachelor party, like, oh, big fun weekend. Then you hear these divorce rumors being whispered in left and right every 5 seconds. But then you have to go to the bachelor party anyways because it magically does happen after all. And yeah, the first thing, like Nick said, is there's a lot more questions than answers when you come off the rip with an event like this. But you have to get it done. I mean, if you're the Browns, you got to put out the dinosaurs. You got to have it fun, be Myles' way. Obviously, they can't treat it like it's going to come in and be this crazy event from the start, even though if they knew it was going to be the whole time. But yeah, what was Myles going to say? I mean, Myles gave the answers that he should and probably would give regardless of what happens. And here we are, so on Monday now.
For all the scuttlebutt that came about when that report came out that Jimmy Haslam refused to meet with Myles Garrett, we talked about it right when it happened. I thought it was overblown. It's a headline of your star player, owner refuses to meet him. The headline looks bad, but we knew it wasn't anything to really make a big deal about. And Myles Garrett said, it just forced even more discussions between himself and Andrew Berry. And we talk about it. People hate meddling owners. Well, he let Andrew Berry do his job. He's the one that deals with the contracts. Obviously, Jimmy Haslam signs off on it, but that's Andrew Berry's job, is to give him the contract and have Myles Garrett sign it. And it's a credit to the Browns that they were able to get him to stay here, regardless if Myles, really had a choice. Obviously, he had a choice, but I don't think the leverage was as great as some people made it out to be. But it's good that we can kind of put this all behind us. And I've always said, the second Myles Garrett goes on that field next year, has a 3-sack game, a strip fumble, a touchdown, everybody's going to forget about this whole contract scuttlebutt. And in a couple years, we won't even remember it happened.
The thing, too, is that if the Browns have any hope to compete in the next 5 years, Myles Garrett's a part of that picture. Now you don't need a franchise defensive end, the same way that you need a quarterback. You thought that you could have had 2 massive needs going into the number 2 overall pick. Now you've got 1 massive need as the quarterback situation still looms. So hopefully that now that this is all over, Myles is going to be here for the long haul. And that's good news for the Browns if you think that they could compete for anything meaningful in the next 5 seasons.
And credit to Jimmy Haslam, too, for staying out of this. I mean, did it take going 1-31 and then bringing in the worst contract of all time to get him to stay out of it? Yeah, maybe. But hey, now we've turned a page. We're in the clear now, right?
Well, we are a little bit over a month from the NFL draft. And now the question is, who's going to be the quarterback? Okay, we still don't know. Kenny Pickett is the third guy. He's not going to cut it. He'll compete in camp, but we know you're going to bring in a vet, and you're probably going to draft a guy at 2, I would imagine. At least I hope so. Myles Garrett hopped on a podcast with Andrew Siciliano. The Best Podcast Available is the name of it. He was asking basically, Myles, do you have any idea who's going to be the quarterback? And Myles said, after conversations, I do have an idea, and he was smiling while he said it. But of course, he said, you guys, he can't say anything. What do you guys think Myles knows?
Jack, you think he knows anything?
I don't think he knows a dang thing for sure, but if he does know anything, it's going to be Shedeur Sanders, I think. He might just be excited about the prospect of bringing in a new quarterback and restarting, because looking at where we're at in terms of NFL free agency, obviously, by the time someone sees this, it might be way different. We might have a new quarterback in Cleveland, but as it looks more and more like maybe Kirk isn't going to get, or well, Kirk didn't get cut and probably won't be traded, I don't think Myles Garrett was smiling like that over Russell Wilson. Maybe he just watched some old Seahawks highlights and he is smiling about Russell Wilson, but it's got to be the draft, right?
I think it has to be, because what else could they have promised Myles Garrett? You know,
Joe Flacco.
Yeah, you're not 100% sure that you could even get Joe Flacco at that moment. You know, Russell Wilson, who I know Myles Garrett was in the meeting and part of the pitch for Russell Wilson. Well, that's all fine and great, but there's no guarantee. Russell Wilson's still going to field offers from the New York Giants, from the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the one thing that they could assure him on is, Myles, there's 2 quarterbacks atop this class. We don't know that we could get Cam Ward. He's probably going to go 1 to the Tennessee Titans, but we could promise you that we're going to put our eggs in the Shedeur Sanders basket, and that we're going to try to build everything around him the best that we can to make him our version of Jaden Daniels. So I think that's part of the plan that they laid out to him, as well as overhauling the rest of the QB room. And I think we saw that with Pickett. Add one more guy, Shedeur Sanders, and that could be your quarterback room going into 2025.
Yeah, as of today, we're still waiting for the dominoes to fall with Russell Wilson. We're still waiting for Aaron Rodgers to make up his mind where he's going to go. He's still on the beach with a towel around his neck. Guys like Jameis Winston, who met with the Giants, there's still so many quarterback pieces, and ultimately the Browns are in that debacle. They don't know who their quarterback is going to be. I don't believe they had an offer out for Russell Wilson, but eventually I'm assuming they will if he agrees he wants to come to Cleveland. We'll see if that happens, but Myles Garrett knows football better than any of us combined. I would imagine he's sold on a young guy like a Shedeur, like a Cam Ward, coming to Cleveland and revitalizing this franchise to hopefully at least where they were in 2020, and that's at least going to the playoffs. All right, we got to take a break. When we get back, we're sticking to football. Look at the numbers that Jamar Chase and T. Higgins just got paid. You talk about money, they got it. We'll talk about that and more when we get back here on The Big Factor. Hey, everybody. Welcome back into The Big Factor on the Big Play Sports Network. Ryan, Tyler, Jack O'Rourke, Nick Padone. We're brought to you, like we are every single day, by our great friends at Fairway Ford, Ohio. Fairway Ford is the biggest Ford truck dealership in the state. They have the largest selection of Ford F-150s as well as Super Duty trucks. And guys, I promise you they will not be beat on price by any other Ford dealers. Do not let a short drive to Canfield prevent you from saving thousands, yes, literal thousands of dollars on your new truck. Fairway Ford is the largest inventory of new Ford trucks, lowest pricing, and the same hometown level of service. Visit fairwayfordohio.com. That's fairwayfordohio.com. And by the way, yeah, they'll deliver to you now. Fairway Ford, you absolutely can't beat it. I mentioned saving thousands of dollars. Well, somebody who thousands of dollars is no longer even anything to them. That's Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, as they both get extensions from the Cincinnati Bengals. Jamar Chase is now retaking the title from Myles Garrett. He is the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. He signs a 4-year, $161 million deal. That's $112 guaranteed. His teammate T. Higgins agreed to a 4-year, $115 million deal. That's guaranteed for the first 2 years. The Cincinnati Bengals, you might lose Trey Hendrickson. That's probably going to happen. But at least on the offensive side, you keep 2 of your best weapons.
And they're trying to figure out Trey Hendrickson. You know, this is is interesting because now I think it's like 40% of the Bengals cap is allotted to Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase. And it's just interesting because you always put Joe Burrow, at least I do, in that echelon of quarterbacks that the AFC just runs through. You know, it runs through Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson. Those have been your mainstays in this AFC. You look at Patrick Mahomes, he lost Tyreek Hill, won a Super Bowl. You look at Josh Allen, he lost Stephon Diggs, went to an AFC championship game. So it's interesting to me that the Bengals decide to go the route that neither the Buffalo Bills or the Kansas City Chiefs went, and they said, hey, let's commit big time NFL record-setting dollars to our top flight receivers and see if we could break the trend of, you know, leaving our quarterback with limited options. Thought it was interesting.
This is huge for us, by the way, guys. I mean, I know it's a little bit off topic. We're still talking about Jamar and that, but you know, they're not going to trigger the NFL disaster draft for how bad this Bengals defense is going to be, but this is a legit chance for all three of us to find a shot in the NFL. I mean, the Bengals are going to be calling on anyone and everyone who owns a football helmet to play defense over the next couple of years. I mean, it's what you said, 50% of the salary cap already between those three guys. Trey ain't cheap if they try and bring him back. They're going to need some help. I heard Geno Stone's coming back for that secondary, so I know I can get out there at least. Guys, this is awesome. Playing in the NFL.
Well, Al Golden, the Bengals' new defensive coordinator, coming from your team, Notre Dame, certainly has his work cut out for him, especially considering you're going to be losing your best edge rusher, your best defensive player, to call it for what it is, and Trey Hendrickson. That defense is not deep, it's not talented, and it didn't get any better.
And that's an Al Golden defense. You need to be able to get to the quarterback within 2 seconds because you're relying on a not as strong secondary to hold their ground and cover for a little bit extra longer. If they don't have Trey up there up front, that might get real ugly. This could be good for Shedeur, though. Maybe we get Shedeur like week 2 against them, throw for 350 yards, then go back to being whatever.
You know, this is what the Colts did with Peyton Manning.
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
They just said we're not going to have a defense. We're going to go trial by fire defensively.
Big 12 football.
And we're going to do Big 12 in the NFL. We're going to absolutely load up an offense for Peyton Manning, and it at least worked where they were able to, you know, make a little bit of noise in the playoffs.
Got a ring.
Yeah, got a ring out of it. So we'll see if this is going to work for Joe Burrow. Like now it's up to him. You know, like your two playmakers are there. Those were the guys that he publicly advocated for. If they find a way to bring back Trey Hendrickson, they're going to be absolutely up against it in terms of cap space, and they're going to need to draft incredibly well. That's now a prerequisite for everything that the Bengals are going to do is draft well and consistently develop and churn defensive players because they're going all in on the offensive side of the football. That's what we say all season long when it's football season. It's you got to score points. You know, look at all these teams putting up big points. The Bengals just committed big time money to doing it. So we're going to find out if it works.
The craziest thing too, listening to Enter the Jungle, our Bengals show here at Big Play with James Rapine, is that it sounds like even with these extensions, tight end, whether it's Colston Loveland or Tyler Warren, is still very much on the board for the Bengals at 17. How nuts would that be if they didn't even address the defense in the first round? Save that for later, kick the can down the road, and they just try and just score.
I mean, you talk about Big 12 football in the NFL, it's kind of what you're looking at, right? I mean, you can score 40 points a game. This Bengals offense, I would say, you locked up T. Higgins and Jamar. It's one of the best offenses. You have a top 5 quarterback, the best receiver in football, 1 or 2 between Jamar and Jay Jettas. And then now you have the most expensive wide receiver, too, in T. Higgins, who, by the way, would be a wide receiver 1 on about half of the NFL teams right now if you look at the rosters, right? Like, you go back to that last week of the regular season, they beat Denver, although you didn't get in the playoffs because you didn't control your own destiny. Yep. But T. Higgins, 3 touchdowns that game. Like, just the ability of T. Higgins there, how good he is, and then also you can't double cover both guys. Like, T. Higgins makes Jamar Chase better, and Jamar Chase makes T. Higgins better, and Joe Burrow makes them both way better. It's interesting, this case study. I don't remember a time where I've seen 2 contract extensions come out like right at the same time. Like, obviously the numbers had to, you know, correlate with each other because they're both getting paid such a big bag. But it's an interesting case study. We're going to see how it plays out this year of, well, I'll score 40 points, but how many times are you going to win if you're giving up 45 points in an NFL game?
Yeah, man. And Mike Brown, I know that whole family doesn't have a ton of money laying around outside of an NFL team. So yeah, they got their coin. Don't get me wrong. He's got to be happy about that Fairway Ford deal, man, because if he's buying a car anytime soon, he's going to need every discount in the book to get there.
If the Cincinnati Bengals need a truck.
Yeah, they're
Canfield, Ohio, Fairway Ford, short drive, save thousands.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the Cincinnati Bengals sold enough stadium TVs, and they're able to keep their franchise cornerstone in Jamar Chase and keep
You think they had like a Girl Scout cookies thing to try and get through to get these contracts out, like sending kids around door to door, sell a couple tag-alongs to bring T. Higgins back to town?
Yeah.
Well, whatever they did.
We're selling chocolate bars. bars.
Yeah.
It managed to work.
Jamar Chase? Here.
I feel good. I mean, I don't feel good. I hate the Cincinnati Bengals. Don't get me wrong, but good for them, and good for them for stepping up for paying their players, because without them, boy, Joe Burrow, he would be on the first. As soon as he can get out of there, he would be out of there requesting a trade, just like we saw here with Myles Garrett. We got to take a break. When we get back, we're sticking with NFL free agency. Kirk Cousins doesn't get cut. Maybe a surprise there. Also, Cooper Kupp stays in the NFC West. He flips over to Seattle, his hometown. We'll talk about that more when we get back here on The Big Factor. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Big Factor here on the Big Play Sports Network. Ryan, Tyler, Nick, Padone, Jack O'Rourke. We're staying around the NFL free agency. We are in the midst of it. Kirko changed the dream to Cleveland. Well, that's dead. I didn't want it. I know some people did, but he remains an Atlanta Falcon. They keep the veteran quarterback past the 4 p.m. deadline of this Saturday, triggering a $10 million guarantee that they're going to have to pay him. But if the Falcons are to trade him this season, guys, don't forget Cousins still have to clear any deal. He has a no-trade clause. Turns out Arthur Blank and the Falcons, they weren't bluffing. They're willing to make Kirk Cousins the most expensive backup in NFL history to back up their young star, Michael Penix Jr.
There's some people who just should not have whatever job they do in life, and I hate to call people out for that, but Arthur Blank as an owner really hasn't done a whole ton. He's lost a couple of big free agents throughout his years as well. He puts himself up in the rafters, and he's just going to hold on to 40-year-old Kirk Cousins behind his quarterback for $10 million. Like, that dude has no clue what is going on in the NFL. Makes no sense why Arthur Blank is still an owner.
Especially because Kirk Cousins wanted to be out. You know, he wanted to be away from this situation.
Don't pay me $10 million.
Yeah, he signed there to start. Like, I think he would have been cool with getting cut and losing out on this $10 million. It is a bizarre situation, but Ryan, you're right. It was not a bluff. And I think this complicates things maybe a little bit for the QB market as a whole. You know, I know the Browns had their finger on this pulse big time to see what was going to happen and what was going to go down. You look at elsewhere, the New York Giants are trying to figure out what is their situation going to look like. Everybody's waiting on Aaron Rodgers at the time that we record this. The Minnesota Vikings, the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's so many moving pieces that right now the QB market feels like a game of musical chairs, and it's just going to be who sits down first. Could it be Rodgers? Could now one of these teams trade for Kirk Cousins? We know that it can't be the Browns because they're not going to want to pay that whole $10 million unless they do some sort of restructure or split with Atlanta, where Atlanta has to eat some of that cap space to give the Browns a little bit of relief to be able to take Kirk Cousins on the cheap. Bizarre times right now to need a quarterback, and there are still a bunch of teams in the NFL that need a starter, that need a backup, or like the Browns are trying to overhaul your whole position group.
Now the Falcons are just banking on a team that's good. Their quarterback goes down. They're willing to trade and take a flyer on a guy like Kirk Cousins, take on some of that money that the Falcons owe him. Kirk Cousins, generational bag stealer, okay? Tom Brady in his 23 season in the NFL here in $332 million. Kirk Cousins, in 14 seasons, has so far earned a guaranteed $331.6 million, less than $1 million, less than Tom Brady did in his career. And guys, these aren't comparable. Kirk Cousins to Tom Brady, generational bag stealer. You talk about a heist, that's Kirk Cousins.
Brady was able to take a couple hometown discounts because having a supermodel wife that makes her own tens of millions of dollars, you know, at the time he was able to do that, but now I'm not so sure.
I mean, look at Matt Flynn. Matt Flynn is probably halfway up that list as well, and I think he threw like 12 career passes. I mean, there's a market there for backup quarterbacks. Chase Daniel's another guy who no longer, sadly, but there was a good day in time where Chase Daniel was getting 2 years, $13 million, like it was nobody's business.
Yeah, I mean, us in Cleveland here, we know a little bit about throwing bags to people who probably don't deserve it. Dwayne Bowe comes to mind.
Brock Osweiler.
Brock Osweiler. I mean, just
Deshaun Watson.
the list. Yes, that's the most recent, of course, is Deshaun Watson. Seattle, they acquire Cooper Kupp, the 31-year-old. I said his hometown was Seattle. I meant home state of Washington. He grew up in Yakima, Washington. And actually, do you guys know how I know what Yakima was before I even heard this?
Is that where Mount St. Helens is?
I have no idea. But I knew from iCarly, her grandpa, I remember that one episode came from Yakima.
Yeah.
You remember
I
that?
never watched iCarly growing up.
That's absolutely insane.
crazy.
Well, Cooper Kupp, he stays in the NFC West. He goes from the Rams to the Seattle Seahawks. He pairs with Jackson Smith and Jigba, newly acquired Sam Darnold. Cooper Kupp, 31 years old. Obviously on the downside of, or the second half of his career, I should say. But guys, we were just a couple years removed from, he won the Triple Crown. That's one of the best receiving seasons we've ever seen compared to Jamar Chase's this year. Pretty damn similar. Seattle, very new look there. You bring in Sam Darnold, you trade DK Metcalf, you cut Tyler Lockett, you bring in a 31-year-old I mentioned, Cooper Kupp now. Clint Kubiak, the OC in there, and you see what Mike McDaniel can do in his second year in Washington.
Yeah, very new look was a nice euphemism you used there, Ryan, for putting lipstick on a pig. I mean, this team got worse in the offseason. The whole Cooper Kupp and Sam Darnold vibe gives me like Dwight Howard and Steve Nash to the Lakers type of vibes. I don't know. I don't see a world where the Seahawks team competes for a playoff spot this year out in the NFC West.
That's the thing. That's a tough division, and I like the Cooper Kupp move. I know there's a lot of people that think Cooper Kupp is washed, and he probably is definitely starting to get there. I just rewatched over the weekend the end of that Bengals versus Rams Super Bowl. That drive where the Rams scored, that was all Cooper Kupp. Like, they did not win that Super Bowl if it was not for Cooper Kupp. That wasn't that long ago. That was just a few short seasons ago. I know for a receiver, a fall off could happen fast. I thought Cooper Kupp was going to go somewhere where he could be a reliable check down guy for a young quarterback. Sam Darnold's not a dinosaur by any stretch, but he's going to be 30. I think we know what Sam Darnold is. Like, I don't think any of us are going to be surprised if Sam Darnold has a little bit of regression from what he was last year in his new stop in Seattle, especially when you're going up against that Rams pass rush. The Cardinals pass rush got a lot better. So it's a weird fit. I'm sure it's cool for him to go back to his home state, but I thought he was going to go somewhere else.
I thought he was going to go somewhere else as well. I mentioned Dallas as a possibility. I know Schefter said they were a sleeper team. Seattle's kind of came out of nowhere. I know there's a lot of connections to maybe Denver. They just got Evan Ingram. I don't think the Seahawks are really that far off, to be honest with you. When you look at the NFC West, like the 49ers are obviously still good, but look at the amount of pieces that they lost. I don't think they're going to go into this season like they did the last two seasons of being an NFC powerhouse favorite
Ryan,
to go to the Super Bowl.
They could still trade Ayuk.
Yeah.
Like, keep your eye on Brandon Ayuk. That's another player that could get traded by the night of the draft.
And Arizona, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and sing home about anything about that's going on in Arizona. We'll see if Jonathan Gannon even has a job after this season. And then the Rams. I mean, I imagine they'll be the favorite.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I don't know. I could see Seattle sneaking in there. They just need to address their offensive line, to be honest with you. All right, we got to take another break. When we get back, we're talking about March Madness. 'Tis the season. Sunday selection was just this past Sunday. The brackets, it is time to fill them out. I'm yet to fill mine out, but I'll give you a little preview of what I'm thinking when we get back here on The Big Factor. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Big Factor here on the Big Play Sports Network. Ryan, Tyler, Jack O'Rourke, Nick Padone. We're flipping it over to the hardwood. Basketball, college basketball to be more specific. March Madness is here. Selection Sunday has just passed us. You got your one seeds, Auburn, Duke, Florida, Houston. Congrats to the Akron Zips, the local team here that's going to the big dance. I know Nick's not too thrilled about that. They'll have a tough matchup with Arizona.
Yay, Akron. Have fun being 15.5-point underdogs to Arizona, and congratulations on your first round exit.
Well, as a Cincinnati Bearcat, a alum and a huge fan. Again, they missed the big dance. I thought
Yeah.
Wes Miller was going to get the crew together this year. They were going to finally figure some things out, but now it looks like they might need a new basketball coach there.
Could we just say this is a horrible year for college basketball in Ohio? Like, what the Ohio State Buckeyes did in the Big Ten tournament is nothing short of it embarrassing. You had 2 opportunities with the season on the line to turn around what had been a disappointing season where people maybe didn't have big expectations. But I mean, you're 17-15, you're 2 games over 500, you're right there in the Big Ten tournament. You've got 2 bad teams and you lose twice in a row to get bounced from the Big Ten tournament. Then you're turning down the invite to the NIT or whatever we want to call it now. Like, embarrassing stuff out of the Buckeyes. And then that's it. It's literally Xavier and Akron as the 2 Ohio teams in March Madness.
I will say,
disappointing season.
Shout out to Cleveland State, though. I know they didn't get it done at the end, but they had a really impressive regular season on the horizon. And shout out to Coach Robinson and that team for putting up a little bit of fight for Cleveland.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is the time of year everybody fills out their brackets. They give you their sleepers. So we're all going to give a sleeper here. Nick, I'll let you start. I know you're pretty passionate about your sleeper for 2025 March Madness.
I am, and I'm passionate for it on the court and off the court is McNeese. I know everybody's on McNeese because of Amir Khan, their student basketball manager, who became over the weekend the first college basketball student manager to sign an NIL deal. You guys have to look this kid up. McNeese's Amir Khan is the definition of aura. He walks the team out of the locker room every single game with
in and out on the speaker.
chains on.
Oh,
yeah. They got the speaker with the sponsorship. You know,
Shout out to
all the
Ludfo.
players are rapping coming out. They've got that team chemistry, which you want this time of year. That's what you're looking for in March. But on the court, they competed all year long. They were 0-2 against their 2 SEC teams that they played, but they hung in there in both of those games. They got a tough draw in round 1 with Clemson. We know that's going to be a difficult game, but if you're looking for a round 1 upset, go with McNeese. It's a fun story. They're a fun team. I know a lot of people thought last season that they could be a Cinderella. They retained a lot of those players, and they're right back in the Cinderella talk of this year as well.
They played Bama close on the road, right?
Yep.
I think it was on the road. That is very impressive to do.
All right. The McNeese State Cowboys. I believe.
Cowboys, yeah. Poke 'em.
Jack, who is your 2025 March Madness sleeper?
Gosh, I have 2. As I told you guys during the break, I'm going to review 2 here because one of them is in Cleveland, so I felt like I had to say that. But my real sleeper of the tournament is going to be the Baylor Bears coming in at a 9 seed. VJ Edgecombe is one of the best college basketball players to make the tournament. He's one of the highest NBA recruits. I believe he's projected to go in the top 7, if not higher. He's one of the best shooting guards in the country, especially with Dylan Harper not making the tournament. So I really look at Baylor to maybe go on a little sneaky run. And the one, man, they're in Cleveland. They're a 7 seed, so it's not like they're crazy by any means. But the St. Mary's Gales, folks, out there in California, I watched a lot of late-night college basketball back in my day in college with my buddies. They were always the late-night game at 10:30 or 12. Yeah. I'm not even going to try and sit here and pretend to pronounce their 2 superstars' names because they have, like, 45 letters each in their last name. They're, like, Porzingis, Lithuanian-type names. But it's a team who goes to the tournament every single year. They have that playoff pedigree, and they have Vanderbilt. I mean, when was the last time Vanderbilt made the NCAA tournament? The SEC got 14 teams in, and the SEC has not had a great track record in NCAA playoffs in recent memory here coming off football. So at least 5 of those 14 teams are going to get knocked out. So give me St. Mary's, give me Baylor.
Hey, shout out Vanderbilt. You talk about having a great year, not just basketball, but sports in general. Football.
Yeah, football.
You knocked off Alabama, had that historic upset. You flip it over to basketball season, you make the big dance. Hell of a year for Vanderbilt. People
The
in
Vandy
Nashville
boys will be out there in
celebrating.
baseball soon, too. You know they're always coming.
Yeah.
Shout out to Jensen Lewis.
Shout out to JLou50. I'll go with Texas A&M. 2 SEC, all SEC players. They've been good and they've been really bad, and that kind of scares me going into a tournament. You like consistency. You beat Auburn, the number one team in the country, but then you kind of lose to teams that you have no business losing. I don't usually like picking those teams that play to the level of their competition. I want you to be, consistent with how you play. But they have a great bench, and I think that's a big part in March Madness. And you just need to make free throws. That's the biggest thing that comes down to is you're putting thousands of dollars, hundreds of dollars, however much money you bet on college kids making free throws, and that's what makes you pull your hair out. I'll go with Texas A&M. The only thing that worries me is a matchup 4-13 versus Yale.
Dude, everyone and their mother's taking
Everybody's on
An
Yale.
Ivy League team always advances to the round of 32. It seems like you always have a 13-4 upset. So maybe if they can get past them, and then you have a second round matchup with either Michigan
And
or
they're a
UC
good
San
offensive
Diego.
rebounding team,
That's
too.
what that's the scouting report on those Bulldogs up there in Yale is that they get those offensive boards and they don't turn the ball over. And Ryan, that has to make your skin crawl this time of the year.
This is the best time of year because we get to break down college basketball like we watched all of these teams all year long.
I have never seen Yale take one shot on a basketball court. But let me tell you, that offensive rebounding and if they're not turning the ball over, that team can compete this time of year.
I will
January,
tell you guys,
February Bulldogs.
if you guys want to wait to put in your brackets, John Fanta, local kid done good, big time college basketball analyst, reporter, play-by-play guy, doer of all things college basketball, joins us on the Big Factor Thursday, right before the tournament games tip on the Big Factor. So follow us on social because John Fanta is going to be on the program.
Big story for March Madness is, of course, 1 seed Duke. What's the status with Cooper Flagg? I watched the replay, completely rolled up his ankle. He missed the rest of the conference tournament. Duke still won the tournament, but when you're playing teams like you get to the Floridas, you get to the Elite Eights, the Final Fours, I assume by then Cooper Flagg will be healthy because by far the most dominant player in college basketball right now, leads Duke in literally every single metric and every single stat. You can't win the big dance without your best player. So we'll see that. But Cooper Flagg, guys, is one of the best players I've seen. Like, you think of college studs in basketball, you go back to Zion a couple years ago, John Wall at Kentucky, Cat, AD. Cooper Flagg is the real deal, and without a doubt will be the #1 pick in next year's draft.
Do you guys have like an all-time favorite March Madness player?
March Madness player? Honestly, I think it's just because I knew about him before he got cool and then eventually had his issues, but Ja Morant at Murray State. I was in on Ja Morant before that tournament started, and he was so fun to watch.
He was with, it was him and Anthony Edwards, right?
Did he he went to Georgia?
No,
right?
no, I'm saying that was the same year.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, and everybody's like Anthony Edwards or Ja Morant, and Ja Morant was just baptizing people.
Yeah.
And then obviously Murray State went to what? Like, I want to say the Sweet 16 or
Around
something
there.
like that.
But I was going to say real quick on Duke as well, though, before we get too far. Even if Cooper Flagg doesn't play, Duke has 3 other kids who are top 15 projected draft picks this year. I mean, that team's going to be fine, no matter how that shakes out for the first couple of rounds.
Ryan, do you have an all-time favorite March Madness? I'm just trying to say mine.
I'll go Doug from the Peacocks.
Oh, Eater?
So last year?
Yeah. No, that was what?
3
years ago. Last year, the guy that came out of the woodwork was
Golke, that's right.
Just a 3-point sniper. But
they beat Dillingham in Kentucky. Right?
Yeah, but the run that the Peacocks went on was so special. Like, it's just reminiscent of like the Florida Gulf Coast teams that just absolutely. There's one team every year that is just becomes the darling.
A little Fred VanVleet, Shaka Smart, Ron Baker combo. You knew they were going deep. You knew they were going deep.
I hate Wichita State with a passion. That with Ron Baker, Clay Anthony Early. That team.
I love Shaka Smart. He was VCU. I'm sorry. I'm mixing up my mid-majors.
They had it was like Greg Marshall, I think.
Yeah,
I saw that because they played Notre Dame. I saw them play in the Sweet 16
when you mentioned that Wichita State team, they took out Kentucky, right?
No, so maybe they did the year before, but the year I was there, it was Notre Dame beat beat Wichita State, and then that was when Kentucky was undefeated. They beat Bob Huggins and West Virginia.
Was that Notre Dame team Bonzie Colson?
It was Bonzie Colson, Jerry and Grant, and Pat Connaughton.
Yep.
Yeah. So it was, and then Notre Dame was beating the whole game. Jerry and Grant missed about 45 free throws, and then Kentucky went to the Final Four with Cat, the Harrisons, all those guys, and they lost to Kaminsky in Wisconsin.
Nick, your favorite player, March Madness?
Give me Jimmer Fredette.
Yeah.
Easy. That
you got the jersey, right?
Yeah, I have a Jimmer Fredette BYU jersey. Just
the
all-time March Madness run. I remember vividly. Shout out to one of my great friends, Ian Vaughn. We're sitting in 7th grade or 8th grade. Maybe it might have been both years because Jimmer was at BYU for a minute. In our English classroom. And this was back in the era before everybody had an iPhone. So like my first phone was like a Samsung sliding phone. But you also had an iPod Touch. So you could like go on the internet and stuff. So we were on the school Wi-Fi using the March Madness app in his desk watching Jimmer Mania during that BYU run, and his phone went off. Like the March Madness like went off in his desk. He closed it really fast and tried to like sit on his phone. Teacher took the iPod. It was game over. We couldn't watch the rest of the game, but Jimmer Mania I'll always remember.
I rember watching Dayton beat Aaron Craft.
Yes, I was in 7th grade social studies.
I was in 6th grade, so that's exactly how we both got the years right on that.
I got one more player for you that is just a March Madness legend, and that is Butler's own Gordon Hayward. Almost got it done the whole time. Gordon Hayward was so fun to watch. He was great in the league. Obviously, I remember here in Cleveland he had that injury. Never really was the same.
How about Mr. Cavalier himself, Austin Carr,
putting up buckets.
has 3 of the top 10 all-time scoring performances in March Madness for the Irish.
Somebody breaks that this year. How about this hot take?
Someone hits, they have to get like 50 points.
Why not?
Why not? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with, it is going to be, so Friday allegations, Monday predictions, I think is what we'll have to do. I'm going to give you that VJ Edgecombe from Baylor. He's going to drop 51 game of tournament.
All right.
Baylor not too long ago won the whole thing.
Yeah.
Talk about a fall off. Where's Gonzaga at, man? Never got it done, and we'll
Hey,
I
10
guess they
straight
might
Sweet
never.
16s, though. You know they're going to make it there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think they're like 50-1. If you're looking for a good value bet to win it all, don't sleep on the Zags. They got Nemhart's little brother,
Oh, really?
who's like one of the best guards in the nation. Like, don't sleep on the Zags. Like, to just as a good value bet. I don't think that they actually do it, but 50-1 is kind of crazy. They're a good basketball program.
I want to break down the women's side of things too. Later this week on the show, I want Paige Beckers to go win the whole thing with UConn.
Would be cool.
There's some
Not
great,
gonna happen.
there's some fantastic storylines on the women's side. We'll talk about that too. We got to take another break. When we get back, we're flipping over to baseball. The AL West preview. Jack's going to tell us everything you need to know from that division when we get back here on The Big Factor. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Big Factor here on the Big Play Sports Network. Ryan Tyler, Jack O'Rourke, Nick Padone. We're flipping it over to the Diamond, talking about baseball today. An AL West preview. Last year, the Astros, of course, after a horrible start, by the way, in the regular season, they figured out and they won the AL West for which seems like the 900,000th time in a row. They went 88-73 last season. This offseason, big additions, Christian Walker, first baseman, Ben Gamel, left fielder on a one-year deal. They traded star Kyle Tucker to the Chicago Cubs for Isaac Paredes, Hayden Wesensky, and minor leaguer Cam Smith. Starting rotation looks like it's going to be Framber Valdez, Hunter Brown, Ronel Blanco, Spencer Arrighetti, and Hayden Wesneski, as I mentioned before. Jack, what do you see out of the Houston Astros this season?
Honestly, I see the Houston Astros as the Cleveland Astros or the Houston Guardians, whichever way you want to call it. These two teams had exactly similar off seasons of how they went. Teams that have been towards the top of their division for a very long time now. Both these teams, really since about 2016, have always kind of trended in the top 1 to 2 spots within their division. But man, this is going to be really tough to make up a lot of production, losing Alex Bregman and Kyle Tucker in the outfield in a way similar, more production than when we lost Naylor and Jimenez, but the same kind of thing. You have 2 stalwarts in your lineup who you're leaving. You're moving a guy around, Jose Altuve, heading out to the outfield. But what it comes down to for the Astros and the Guardians this year is when they get their guys back in the middle of the year, are they going to be competing at a top level and ready to lift that starting rotation up towards the top of the league and head your team towards a playoff berth? For the Astros, it's Christian Javier's out right now, which is a big blow for them, right behind Framber Valdez. For the Guardians, of course, Shane Bieber. And it's going to come down to, can your young guy who's starting to take those steps and build up towards being an elite pitcher in the MLB continue and move on through in that process? Can Tanner Bybee for the Cleveland Guardians push forward and cement himself in the ace category? Can Hunter Brown do the same thing for the Astros? I have the Astros coming in 2 in the division this year, but it's just going to be really weird. It's, can they replicate that production? Can they find a way to make up for the losses between those 2 stars we talked about? Isaac Paredes is a hell of a ball player. He's been traded around a lot so far as a young kid, but he's a pull hitter. I was talking to my buddy Ethan about this morning, actually. Pull hitter in that stadium with that short porch. You never know what can happen out there. Christian Walker, also a right-handed hitter, taking over in that first base role that was kind of left for a couple of years when they tried to go out and get Jose Abreu. He does nothing for Houston. I think Christian Walker is going to bounce back, hit probably 25, 30 home runs for the Astros. So first base will be all good for them once again for the first time in a couple of years.
How many years, and maybe the answer to this isn't an amount of years, it's just never. And my question is, will it get lost in history? the Astros cheating scandal, banging trash cans. Will there be a day we forget and we don't associate the Astros with their scandal?
Pepperidge Farms remembers.
I was going to say the North remembers. Pepperidge Farms also remembers. Whoever you go with. No, that's a stain that won't ever leave baseball. I honestly think it's not going to come up for a while, but it's gonna come up when Jose Altuve's Hall of Fame ballot comes up. Jose Altuve will get in. I was actually wrong. I was one of the last people to be on the Jose Altuve is getting in train for a while, but he's going to get in. It'll pop up whenever that happens in 10 years or whatever. But no, it won't die, but it's not as bad as the steroids for a lot of people.
Yeah.
The Seattle Mariners, they didn't make really any moves this offseason. Their starting rotation looks to be Logan Gilbert, Luis Castillo, Bryce Miller, Brian Wu, Emerson Hancock. George Kirby's going to start the season on the 15-day IL. You got a young superstar in Rodriguez. Jack finished second in the AL West, as I mentioned. How do you see that playing out?
Yeah, so the Seattle Mariners, here's the really funny thing about them this year, Ryan, is you could just put a dart or a blindfold on and just start throwing darts at any amount of wins you could think of. They fired Scott Cervais, their manager, late in the season last year, and they ripped off I think a 30-10 run to end the year, so really impressive. But the issue has been now for not just one, but multiple off seasons, even after making that playoff appearance in 2022, that the Mariners just don't have the guns to get it done offensively. They strike out more than any other team in the league. It's been an issue for a couple of years now. Julio Rodriguez had the worst year of his career, which was still a very solid season. He's very, very young. Don't get me wrong. But when you have that, you have him not having a great year. You have Cal Raleigh had the best year of his career, but it is Cal Raleigh who was never that level up until last season. Can he go out and do it again? It's very tough for catchers to replicate that kind of production year after year. You didn't do anything else besides that. You lost Justin Turner. J.P. Crawford's solid, but J.P. Crawford doesn't move the needle for me in the middle of any order. Nothing is going to change in Seattle until they go out and get two more guys who have 20 and 80 in them. That's all it comes down to. And the thing that doesn't make sense, which we can talk about for the billionth time, is they have 7 major league caliber legit starting pitchers. They have to start offloading some of those guys, whether it's Emerson Hancock, who, as you mentioned earlier, is probably going to start as the 5, but once George Kirby's ready, he's going to get knocked out. Something's got to give in Seattle when it comes to that offense, because it sucks, to be quite frank.
All right, the Texas Rangers, just 2 years removed from them winning their first World Series in franchise history. They're rolling out Jacob deGrom, Nathan Eovaldi, John Gray, Cody Bradford, Tyler Mahle. They need a bounce-back year from Yona Heim. Corey Seager, they're looking to stay healthy, played in just 123 games last season. And they added Jock Peterson, who I always think of the fantasy football debacle where him and his teammate got in a scruff as the big fantasy football guy that I am. So I'll always appreciate Jock Peterson for being passionate about that.
Yeah, and for the Rangers, it's a little bit like the Astros and the Guardians, how we talked about how is that pitching going to come back and make a difference when it does make its return. That's going to be, is Jacob deGrom ready to go? Came back late in the year last year. Same with Tyler Mahle, who was good on the Reds for a couple of years. If those two guys can give them solid innings throughout the year, I think the Rangers win this division very comfortably, to be quite honest with you. I would rely on a Corey Seager bounce-back year as always. Not even that he had a bad year last year, but to be more healthy, stay in the lineup. Marcus Semien's a great ball player. Adolis Garcia can go hit 30, 35 anytime he really wants to. And like you said, Jonah Heim is another guy who, if I'm banking on between him and Cal Raleigh to come out and have an all-star year out of the AL West for catchers, I actually would take Jonah Heim to bounce back and do it again. So yeah, I think the Rangers win this division. I didn't mention it, but the Mariners, I would have them third.
All right, the AAA Oakland Athletics, who soon be the Las Vegas Athletics. They're in a 3-year stint playing in a minor league park, which, by the way, Rob Manfred, I mean, what are we doing? That is such a shame. They got Luis Severino, who they signed to a deal, J.P. Sears, Jeffrey Springs, who they also brought in, Osvaldo Bido and Joey Estes, who will make up their starting rotation. They extended their star outfielder. They expect to be a star, at least. That's Lawrence Butler, who, by the way, is one of them, if not the most swag in the MLB as a whole. He looks to be a star there. Jack, how are the Athletics going to do playing in a AAA stadium?
They're going to play like a AAA baseball team, Ryan, is what's going to happen with them, sadly. But I don't know. They're in a very bad position. They don't have a city, so that's the thing that you need to worry about before you even start breaking down the offseason transactions. So that is issue number one. But they did do this nice little good show of faith towards Sacramento/Vegas by going out and giving Butler, Rooker, and they gave Luis Severino a nice contract. So they handed out 2 nice extensions and gave out another $60 million contract. This team's really far away from competing. I do have them coming in fourth because there's some fun on the roster. Like you said, Lawrence Butler's a fun guy to watch. Brent Rooker's going to hit 25-plus home runs. And Mason Miller's one of the best closers in baseball. There's some fun there, at least, to move that franchise forward in the right direction.
And that leads us to the lowly Los Angeles Angels. Their starting rotation, Yusei Kikuchi, Tyler Anderson, Jose Soriano, Kyle Hendricks, Jack Kochanowicz, Mike Trout moving from center field to left field. That's about the biggest news we get out of L.A. I mean, bottom of the barrel.
I'm going to the Los Angeles Angels home opener, which I believe is against the Cleveland Guardians. Great tickets still available.
And I guess they will be in April as well. Man, I'm actually a little bit more excited for the Angels than most people are, I would say, around the sport of baseball. They have enough young guys with a lot of pedigree, like Logan O'Hoppe, the catcher, and Nolan Schnuel, the first baseman, who were brought up at a super young age. So those are guys who it's almost like Darius Garland for away with the Cavs, where you bring a guy in who's so young, had so little college experience, and boom, you're transplanting him into the hardest league to play in the world. That's kind of what happened to Schnuel and O'Hoppe. So I think they're still at the point where at their age, they can still continue to progress and get better. The issue is that just old Mother Hubbard has nothing in the cupboard. There's no prospects in this organization. They literally have zero. Zach Nito's really fun, the shortstop who got called up last year. I think he got a nice extension as well. He hits the left-handed side of the plate very, very well. But they have no prospects. That's what it comes down to. Actually, I sent you guys a picture. Their top prospect, I actually took some time to watch him this morning, is Caden Dana, the pitcher, who has a pretty cool curveball. That's what we figured out. He is one of those like toppling over like high arm slot right-hander, boom, down on you like a roller coaster in a way. So that's cool, but that's about all the LA Angels have working for them. They're going to come in 5th place because that starting rotation is poop. This is a nice way we can say it for TV. It's poop. What's his name again? Go back up on the thing. I forget. Jose Soriano. Jose Soriano. Yeah, no, he's a lefty, and it's not very good. Tyler Anderson's past his prime. Kikuchi, like that's the weird thing teams do sometimes is like, you're going to be bad. You're going to win 60-something games. Why did you sign Kikuchi for a $13 million pitching contract? That makes no sense, but power to you. Go back to Anaheim.
Mike Trout, I always said it, and I will still say it, the greatest waste of talent we've ever seen in Major League Baseball, maybe North American sports at this point. I always wanted to see him play in the playoffs, but I don't think he'll ever get there. He wastes away his career in Los Angeles?
Hey, there's like one cool fly out in Baltimore from 10 years ago. So that's about all you get with Mike Trout in the playoffs. And it sucks too because he just signed that extension like 8 years, 30-something million a year. So it's not like there was a time in a world, and we all love seeing the welcome memes on Twitter, but Mike Trout was a deadline possibility or thought for this offseason or this season or next season before that contract was extended. So yeah, he's probably going to be bare bones out there the rest of his career, and they're going to have to put up a statue for him for a bunch of non-playoff seasons.
All right, we got to take one more break. When we get back, we're sticking around baseball, but we're going to the virtual world. Backyard Sports is making its return, has a special place in my heart. Pablo Sanchez is the GOAT of Backyard Sports. We'll talk about that when we wrap up here on The Big Factor. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Big Factor in the Big Play Sports Network. Ryan, Tyler, Jack Rourke, Nick Padone. I'll give a clap for Backyard Sports making its return.
Welcome home.
Backyard Baseball, which took the world by storm in 1997. It actually was revitalized on Steam if you're a PC guy. The old version it was. But they're releasing this game on mobile. That means on your phone you can play, I believe the release date, March 27th, guys. I can't tell you the amount of hours I spent on Backyard Baseball.
Wow,
I didn't really
less than
get
2
into the
weeks.
other sports. They have Backyard Baseball, soccer, hockey, football, skateboarding, basketball. They literally had so many games. I played really only Backyard Baseball, but Pablo Sanchez, you talk about the greatest players of all time, it's Pablo Sanchez, and I'm so excited that this game's back, and I can't wait to play it.
Baseball had to be the biggest, right? Like,
hands down.
I only play baseball.
Yeah, same. And I'm not even like I was a basketball. I played basketball growing up. Like I never even played baseball, but Backyard Baseball was the jam. Like that was, get the fella, ride the bikes over to somebody's house, get the fellas in the basement and play some Backyard Baseball.
I mean, the game was just so much fun. Like, and I keep saying Pablo's the GOAT because he was, but there's so many iconic characters.
There's one I could go on for days about.
I hated Dimitri.
I don't remember him, but let
He
me
was
tell
like
you,
the
man.
nerd.
Let me tell you. If you're an organization like the Angels or the A's who can't really find anyone right now, Pete Wheeler, one of the best leadoff hitters you could ever find in the game, plate discipline, there. He was going to take walks. He was going to get on base for you. You could steal a bag or two as well. Lord knows he can play a good corner outfield. You can even throw him out there in center if you need to on the right day for the boys. Maybe Lane Thomas is down for a day, but I mean, Pete Wheeler got the job done every single time out there. Remember hitting with him in Bonsai Gardens, just ripped him out into the gaps. I mean, it's always a fun day. And once you get him out on the open base pass, the world's his oyster.
Well, we'll end today's show of The Big Factor. I'm going to ask you guys this question. What's your favorite sports video game of all time? I'll start. I think for me, if it's not backyard baseball, it's Mario Super Sluggers. I keep it in baseball.
Yeah.
Such an iconic game. I played that more than probably any other sports game in the world when it was on the Wii. Brings back memories.
Damn, that's a good one. That's a really good one. Since I can't use that, I'll go with a Wii game as well. Just give me Wii Sports.
Yeah.
A lot of memories of
classic.
Not going to find anyone there.
Wii bowling. Come on.
Yeah, for me, I'm gonna go NHL Slapshot on the Wii. You got this nice little like stick controller. You put like the nunchuck. Is that the word?
nunchuck.
Yeah, and then the other one you'd whack it around. That was always fun. I love that NHL Slapshot.
All right, that's going to be our show today on The Big Factor. Huge thanks to Garage Beer. Huge thanks to Fairway Ford. Huge thanks to everybody that's watching this on The Rock. Super excited that's a new venture, pairing up with them here. That's all we have for today. We'll be back tomorrow. Same people, same time. Peace out.